I made the biggest mistake of my life. Traveling is scary. It comes with a lot of variables, a lot of unknowns. It's why people are scared to commit to long-term travel. It's why people don't like to move to new states, much less new countries. People don't like to test out new schools. They're really worried because they know that every location has very different schooling for their kids. The income required to live in a particular location is going to be different from wherever you're from. Like, travel comes with a lot of question marks. The same fears that you as an adult might have, the kid might have. While they're probably less concerned about how much it's gonna cost, they are concerned about how to keep friends.
Prepare to lose all lifelong friendships forever.
How to bring their toys. Will they have foods that they actually enjoy in the new country? Because different cultures interpret dishes in their own unique way. New languages, new cultures, new rules. A lot of variables in travel. Many parenting books will tell you how consistency is super important for kids. Alex was diagnosed with ADHD, and that's one of the things that is recommended, is to have routine and keep life kind of consistent. So how can you do that and travel to new countries? Even if you're just gonna move once, how do you know that the place you're going is going to allow you to keep those same routines, traditions for holidays, all of that jazz? But more importantly, when you're excited to start full-time travel life, how do you get your kid excited with you?
And we're going to Mexico.
Or at least not fighting it tooth and nail, willing to try the next location with you. So the first tip for getting your kids on board with traveling is confidence. Your confidence that wherever you go, whatever you do, you will be fine, your family will be fine, and everything is going to work out well. Especially the more variables there are in life, the more questions, the more unknowns. Having at least one person that you can rely on as kind of that stable ground is very, very important. And for your kid, that person is always you, the parent or parents. If your kid gets the impression that you are just as scared as they are, it makes the whole experience much more scary. And while being honest that you've never gone to Mexico before, or you've never done RV life before, you've never gone to Europe before, whatever the things are, being honest about that is important, but at the same time going, listen, I've lived 44 years, 30 years, 20 years, however many years you've lived, and I know enough about the world to know that wherever I go, I will be fine. I will certainly never choose a place that I think will cause us any kind of harm. Letting them know, hey, I've got the intelligence to choose wisely. I've got the intelligence to hedge our bets. Don't worry, we're going to be okay. Having that confidence, I think, is super important. And if it takes you getting to a place of confidence before letting your kid know that you're moving, I think that's a really great step to take. Confidence does not necessarily mean that you've done it before. It doesn't necessarily mean that you know all the answers. It just means we're going to be okay. That I know. The one thing I know is we're going to be okay. We're not trailblazing here. We're literally doing things that other people have safely done for years and years and years. Don't worry, we can absolutely do what these people have been doing. So step number one is you being confident that everything's going to work out okay. And some tips for you, if you aren't necessarily feeling confident, is don't start out travel life as the trailblazer. There are so many people who are traveling the world even during these times, and a lot of them have YouTube channels, blogs, and Instagrams that tell you how they do it, that give you the secrets of where you can go confidently. And it's one of the reasons why I chose Merida as our first city in Mexico. There were so many YouTubers and so many blogs and posts about Merida that I was confident that many people have done this before. Many people loved Merida. There were communities that I could tap into. There were communities with children I could tap into. And so it took a lot of the question out for me, which therefore took a lot of the question out for Alex. He knew my confidence level showed we were going to be fine. Can't guarantee he'll like it, can't guarantee he'll love it, can't guarantee I'll like it, but I can guarantee we're going to be safe and we're going to be okay. And that first step, confidence, is foundationally one of the more important things to have. Confidence that you're going to be okay, trust in your ability to research what you need to research to get the job done. The second thing is expressing to your child, and probably yourself, because you need to know this as well, that travel life, and especially full-time travel life, is a huge, huge test. Nothing is permanent. Just because you chose RV life as your first stepping stone doesn't mean you have to actually do full-time RV life. You could very easily transition from a full-time RV life concept to 6 months RV life to 6-month Mexico life and kind of bounce back and forth. You could twist to selling the RV or letting people rent it out from you. Really hard to do the renting part, just so you know. But my point is, just because you start in a particular city, in a particular place for your travel life and you have this lifestyle concept in your head, doesn't mean you're going to end there, and there's a huge chance that you're not. And while that could be part of the scariness of having a travel life, it's also part of the awesomeness. Letting your kid know that, hey, if we start RV life and it turns out we hate living here or we hate something about our lives, it's really just a matter of pivoting, of tweaking things. When Alex and I first started RV life, my intention was actually to stay in Florida for, I think it was 3 or 4 nights in the RV, plugged in at a campsite. And the first night sleeping there, this was the summer, by the way, it was incredibly hot, even with my AC turned on, and we were both absolutely miserable with the heat. That night, when I couldn't sleep, my first thought was, oh man, I made the biggest mistake of my life, getting this RV and thinking that we can just jump right into RV life. But the second thought that popped in my head was, if the heat is the problem, why can't we just leave? Yes, I had paid for those 3 or 4 days, but why can't I just leave anyway? And so the next day I let Alex know, this place is too hot. We're going, we're out of here. And one, Alex was super happy because he was miserable in the RV and trying not to complain so much. And two, that was when I started to realize the freedom that I was looking for, RV life was absolutely the right choice, because anytime I didn't like a place, I could leave. This caused me to move far more quickly than I intended to in RV life. I envisioned that I would stay at every site for at least 2 weeks because I knew the faster I traveled, the more it would cost. But at the end of the day, it was more important that we were happy. I didn't want us to be miserable in a particular location simply because I had decided we're gonna stay 2 weeks everywhere.
Why didn't we stay there? We were supposed to stay there for 5 days. How come we didn't stay there for so long?
Heatificationismly.
Yeah, it was freaking hot. It was like 85, almost close to 90 at night. Like, that's not even during the day, at night. So we had one fun day at the beach. Yeah, and then we left. We left. It was the right thing to do.
Yeah, and here's Tennessee.
Yep. And we only stayed in Tennessee for 1 day. Why?
Hot.
Hot, but also
I don't remember.
the ticks.
Oh,
We
right.
had, it
Now
was
I
like,
remember. Like 3 ticks got on me.
yes.
And so that flexibility, while yes, causing a little bit of anxiety, is really the reason why full-time travel is so amazing, is because you're able to pivot. You're able to go, ooh, this was a really bad choice. We don't need to make this choice again. And more importantly, we don't have to live with this choice for the rest of our lives. One of the reasons why right now I'm in a 1-bedroom, even though I really would prefer having a loft, is because having lived in a loft for a little over a year in Merida, Alex was very adamant. He wanted his own bedroom. And while I wasn't willing to that day move into a house with bedrooms, the next time we did move, I purposely made sure that I got a place that had at least 1 bedroom so Alex could have something that seemed really important to him at the time. Now, will he always want a bedroom? I don't know. We'll see. Will I always want to have a studio? Kind of no. I think the next place I go, I'm actually going to look for a 2-bedroom place because I'm starting to like the idea of expanding even more and having a little bit more room in my home. But my point is, traveling is a test. If you don't like RV life, or if RV life is unsustainable for you, which was part of the reason why we stopped RV life for the time being, you can pivot. Turns out there's this whole country called Mexico and many others that was within my budget to travel to and stay for months and months and months. And that's something I might not have tried out if I thought that every decision I made was concrete. Like, no, we decided RV life, that's what we're stuck with. Or we decided Merida, that's what we're stuck with. The beauty of travel life is that we can pivot, and it's something your child needs to know. Let them know this is a test. As you go about telling your child that it's a test, make sure they understand this is a long-term test. This is a test of our characters. This is a test of what we really like. And a weekend in a loft is not the best way to find out if you enjoy living in a loft. A month in an RV is not the best way to figure out if you truly like RV life. Testing these things out takes a good amount of time, several months, if not a year. And so that was something I was really clear with Alex on is, yes, we're testing this full-time travel life, but I need you to give me a year. I need you to mentally be okay with the idea that we're gonna be testing this out for at least 1 year, throughout which you can let me know the things you like, the things you don't like, etc. Because both of us are in this together. Like, we're a team and we both have a say, even though I do retain veto rights. And keep in mind that Alex was testing out not just full-time RV life, but the fact that we were gonna try homeschooling. He knew that he wasn't going to be going to a regular school because with travel, that would be really tricky. He knew that having friends was gonna be difficult, meaning there was a lot of testing going on at the same time. So number one, letting him know that I am confident we were gonna be totally fine. We're not trailblazers. This is not the first time this has ever happened. We will be okay. And two, letting him know this is a test. We are seeing what we like. And some things are really hard to know whether we like it or not if we don't at least try it. So give me a year and let's see what happens. The third concept your kid needs to know is that his or her opinion matters. While, as the mom, I have ultimate say, Alex needed to know that I always have his best interest at heart, but that I am in no way, shape, or form psychic. It was really important for Alex to understand that he needed to share with me when he liked something or when he didn't like something, so I could keep that as a point of reference, so I could keep it in mind, especially when choosing the next location or the next activity. Alex really likes this type of thing. Is there a way I can make sure the next location has that? Again, Alex was very clear in letting me know that he wanted his own bedroom, and I made sure that in the next location he absolutely had that because I prioritize his needs as well. Other things that we've had to compromise on are things like how many toys he can bring. I made sure, first of all, that when we moved out of the apartment, everything that belonged to Alex was safe. So I've not gotten rid of or sold anything of Alex's. That is all safe and sound at my dad's house, whereas a lot of my things, most of my things, have been sold because I am 100% sure that I don't want to have kind of the traditional lifestyle in the US at this time. And also because if I ever do decide to do a more traditional lifestyle in the US, I can, even though it would suck to pay for it all again, I can still get new beds and new tables. So I've got confidence in that. Whereas Alex really hates the idea of having to buy new toys again. And to be fair, from a Lego perspective, once the season for certain Legos are over, you actually can't necessarily buy them again because they create new ones. So he didn't want to get rid of his old toys, makes perfect sense, and I made sure that he was able to keep it at my dad's house. And I make sure that every time we travel, he gets much more room than I would normally have imagined giving him to store his Legos, to store his toys, because that's a really important thing for Alex. So he has a say in this. And sometimes that means I'm paying extra for checked luggage because that's part of his priority, and I try to keep that in mind when making decisions about our next move. I'll mention here that Alex's opinion has always mattered, even before travel, but specifically as we started full-time travel life, I made sure to take time to reiterate this, to reiterate that when you don't like something, you are allowed to speak on it, and more importantly, you really should speak on it. Once certain decisions are made, they're not always easy to change immediately, right? And so the more often Alex feels comfortable speaking up and letting me know, the higher the chance that when it's time to make another decision, to make another move, I'll already know some of the things that he wants, and so it'll be naturally part of the criteria that I look for in the new space. The fourth thing that I stressed for Alex is that his ability to make friends would be something that I attempted to prioritize. Now, this was super difficult in RV life. In RV life, it was really easy for me to find playgrounds, and at those playgrounds, often we found other kids to play with. At campgrounds, very often, especially because we traveled mostly during the summer, it was really easy for me to find other kids for Alex to play with. But what was difficult is maintaining those friendships. Alex started RV life when he was 9 years old, and I did get a phone for him. However, most of the kids he met that were similar to his age didn't have a phone, didn't have a way to maintain that relationship once we left or once they left. And so in terms of long-term friendships during RV life, that was extraordinarily challenging for his age. What's the biggest negative of RV life?
We don't get to have many friends.
Now, I'm sure a teenager would have a much easier time because other teenagers have a tendency of having phones and other ways to communicate. But for Alex, one of the reasons why I knew disrupting RV life for at least a little bit made sense is because it was just really hard finding lasting friendships for him. And so in Mexico, in Merida, as well as San Cruz, we've been able to create the community for him as opposed to play dates with random strangers that you will probably never see again. And so Alex, knowing that I would absolutely prioritize at least a attempting to find friends for him was very helpful in getting him to be okay with the idea of traveling. And Alex knew that San Cruz was actually the first place I wanted to go in Mexico, but I had a really hard time remotely tapping into communities with kids, tapping into other people that were willing to kind of accept my friend request and start even talking about maybe meeting each other when I arrived. Whereas in Merida, it was really easy to tap into that kind of community even before arriving. And so while I was really nervous about the heat in Merida, it turned out to be survivable. I knew I could tap into a community for Alex, and that was really important to him and as well for me. Because if Alex is not happy, I'm not gonna be happy. And so while I was in Merida, observing the communities that already existed there, I knew that the next place I went to might not have a built-in community, so I was taking little notes. How might I start creating a community in a new location if I needed to? And so I was fortunate enough here in San Cruz to be able to do just that, which was pretty awesome and not quite as difficult as I first imagined. And last but not least is letting Alex know and making sure that I remember, traveling doesn't mean becoming a local.
What?
Nothing. You stick out like a sore thumb around here.
Me? What about you?
I fit in better than you. At least I'm wearing cowboy boots.
Oh, yeah, you blend.
I know that there's kind of a standard amongst full-time travelers that living like a local and being a local is their goal, but let me tell you, no, it's not. The goal should be being the best version of you, being the best version of me, Alex being the best version of him. The beauty of travel is, yes, you get to observe and learn how other people live, the priorities they have, the decisions they make, and this is amazing on so many levels. You learn so much through this, but the goal is not to become somebody else, like ever. The goal is always to become the best version of you. And so some kids, especially really young kids I've noticed, feel like when they move to Mexico, they become Mexican. Or if they are constantly moving, who am I? Like, we're always moving, Mom. Where am I from? There's almost this sense of I'm a nomad. I belong to nobody kind of concept. And there's a little bit of fear when it comes to that. So I think it's really important to let your child know that the beauty of learning about how other people live is we get to choose what things we resonate with, what things we don't resonate with, incorporate the things that make a lot of sense to us, but we don't have to incorporate everything into our lives. We don't have to become a local or pretend that that's even a possibility, but instead, travel gives you the opportunity to observe yourself. Travel gives you the opportunity to change the scenery, to change the scenario, so you can decide, oh, this is something that really matters to me. You also get to learn how resilient you are because yes, you might prefer having certain things in your life a certain kind of way, but you realize when you're in an environment where that simply isn't possible, that I can not only survive in this environment, but actually thrive. I can still continue to grow and mature and become better and better no matter the environment I'm in. And there's a level of confidence in yourself that comes when you realize no matter where I am, there my best will be. And so it's not about we're becoming full-time travelers and therefore my entire being has to change. No, it's we're becoming full-time travelers and we get to figure out our truest self, the things we really love about ourselves as well as what we might like about the city or country that we're traveling through.
This might be right. Either you feel it or you don't. Might give it a try, yeah.